Good afternoon, students. This session, and previously we talked of sourcing suppliers, where do we get them, and the information that will help us in sourcing these suppliers. And for now, we are going to look at the supplier appraisals. These suppliers have to be evaluated on how they perform, which is a very important concept in the decision making or in the performance of a company. Appraising suppliers can be defined as assessing suppliers' capabilities. You look at their capacity. What can they provide? Financially, could be technically, could be in terms of equipment, could be in terms of human resource. All that is appraised, is checked, so that the company also, so that the buyer can make a decision on either to take this supplier or not. When is this appraisal needed? When is it necessary to appraise a supplier? The first point is non-satisfied suppliers. When you sense that they are non-satisfied suppliers in the market, then there is need to appraise the supplier. This could be in the supplier's base, or the base, or the segment of the suppliers. When the company identifies that there are some who are not certified, then there is need to check or to appraise them, to check their documents, to check their performance, so that the best are selected. When there is need to buy a high value or a risky item, when we are to buy a high value or risky item, we need to check through our suppliers to see who exactly qualifies to provide this service. And those who don't qualify, they are shortlisted from the list, in other words. Then the perfect ones who can provide, they are given the go-ahead to quote their prices, if that is the process of selection identified. Capital purchase, when we are to buy an item that is supposed to be used for production in the production process, an item or something, or it could be factory equipment. If we are to buy that, then there is need to appraise our suppliers. When we need just-in-time arrangement, whereby, of course, just-in-time is an arrangement whereby a material or an item is supplied when it is needed. This is in existence because companies avoid storage cost. They avoid handling cost. So when an item is needed, a supplier is called and he provides it immediately. So when this arrangement has to be in existence, that is when suppliers have to be appraised to see who can provide just in time, as the word says. Global sourcing and outsourcing. If we are sourcing from a global market, we need to appraise the suppliers. When it is an outsourcing, we already looked at outsourcing, all the risks that come with it, the benefits, and all that. The factors we consider, so we need to check through these suppliers. Then strategic partnership, or SIL. When there is a strategic partnership or supply level arrangement, that is SIL. When there is a need to agree on the level at which the supplier has to provide his services, then we need to appraise the supplier. As sources of supplier identification, where do we get information? Where do we identify these suppliers that we have to appraise or we have to invite to provide our products? Websites or trade journals. We have yellow pages. We have exhibitions or trade shows. I believe we are all familiar with these words. These are not new words to us. Exhibitions, trade shows, information networks, online database, sales representatives. All this can provide us information about suppliers. So all these and many more others, where we can get information about suppliers, or where we can identify suppliers. Evaluation of supplier performance, the next topic I'm going to. What do we look at when we are evaluating or appraising? These are two words which mostly work together. What do we look at? when we are evaluating or appraising our supplier performance. The first item or the first point we need to focus on is the financial capacity. When we look at the finance concept as a part of the item that we need to evaluate. First, financial, we look at the asset value of the supplier, we look at the profitability, we look at the debt ratio, we look at customer base. All this, we look at them because they're all connected to finances. Because if a supplier has low assets, then that means he's not able to provide. Profitability, debt ratio, too much debts, that means he's not able to provide. He has few customers, that means he has not been performing well in the market. We look at all that. Production capacity, the plant size, the machinery, technology use, innovations, layouts, all this, we look at them. These ones will tell us whether the supplier is able to supply or not. Human resource, the staff strength, the qualifications, the morality, dispute history, and all that. We look at all that. They will tell us whether the supplier is capable of providing qualification. Of course, we look at the qualification of the staff and all other items mentioned there. Quality, the output. What is the output? Is it satisfying? We also look at that. Performance, task orders, task records, project experience, innovations, and references. We look at that. How have they been performing the previous tasks that have been provided to them? Environmental and ethical regulation follow-up, we look at that. Do they follow the regulations, that's the government regulations on sustainability, on waste reduction, ethical policies, conflict of interest? Do they follow that? We also grade them based on that. Information technology, do they use e-commerce, or do they have capability of e-commerce? Do they have real-time tracking of information and all of that? We look at all those when we are evaluating suppliers. Supplier categorization, of course, we say we have different suppliers and they are always categorized. Approved suppliers can be classified into partnership suppliers. Of course, these are long-term suppliers. We have what we call preferred suppliers. These are highly reliable suppliers. Suppliers you can rely on. You categorize them differently. Improved suppliers meet basic standards. Suppliers who are called to meet a specific requirement. We also put them separate. We categorize them. Confirmed suppliers can be used. Those suppliers who are used occasionally. Could be events, companies that do events. We can put those ones under confirmed suppliers. We also have a category of suppliers who are called one-off supplier for single transaction. You call them, they supply, and they go. So these are the different categories of suppliers the company can put together. Let's look at the importance of evaluating a supplier. One, improve supplier's performance. It helps us to make decisions on how best supplier can. Because when we evaluate, the report is given to them, so it will help them to improve. Decision making, you can decide either to retain a supplier or to remove him, and there is no need for him anymore as a supplier. Order allocation, you can decide which supplier will do what and which supplier will do which activity. You can categorize your suppliers. The drive continuous improvement, of course, the evaluation will help us to make decisions that will improve the company based on what do we need at what time. That one mainly comes to concept of demand forecasting. Risk management and diversification, because the evaluation will help us to understand which risks were encountered during this process and how do we handle these risks in the next process. Understanding suppliers base. I talked of suppliers base before. We said these are network of suppliers in an organization. Network. How many suppliers, or which category of suppliers are together in that kind of category? Or and that is what we call a supplier base. Organizing supplier basing on what category they are. So you put them together, and that is what we call supplier base. Type can be brought on a narrow base, can be local or global, can be single or multiple sourcing or suppliers. Factors influencing suppliers base. We have core competence of suppliers. So you look at who are those suppliers who are competent, then you put them together, and that becomes your supplier base. Outsourcing decision. You need to look at what do I need to outsource, and who are those suppliers who can provide that item. That also can help us to categorize them. Partnership and tying decisions. What decisions are there, and what partnerships are there, and what decisions that bind these suppliers. You look at them, and it also influences the type of supplier or the base of supplier you make. Global or counter trade strategies. You also look at, is it a globalization? You also look at that. As we looked at ahead here, we say we have a category of suppliers that are under global category. Then we look at another one is risk consideration. You also consider the risks that are involved. Then from there, it will also help you to decide on the supplier base. Social and local obligations. You also look at the social and the local obligations that are required in the procurement process, and it will also help you to come up with a supplier base. Just to conclude, optimization of suppliers base. It reduces and restructures supplier base for efficiency. Why do we have to optimize, or why do we have to rationalize, reorganize them, or why do we have to put them together? It helps us to restructure the suppliers for efficiency. The benefits: low admission costs. When you restructure them, you have low cost in managing the supplier. You can do standardization. It can help you to standardize your company and improve your production, because you have your suppliers and you know what they can do, and they are in a group together. Reduce unplanned purchases, because you plan together with your supplier, so you cannot buy what you did not plan. Low total costs also is another benefit of optimizing suppliers. Lastly, we shall look at the risks of reduced supplier base. What is the risk of having a limited supplier, this number of suppliers, or a base of supplier that is limited? What are those risks? Over-dependency on single supplier is very bad. We mentioned before that if a supplier runs out of material, then we are also at a risk of stopping our production. The supply disruption, of course, if the supplier happens, any risk that comes over him could be fire, could be theft, anything that happens to the supplier, it means even our production process will be interrupted. Reduce goodwill, that is also another part, because if a supplier is not performing well, we shall not have goodwill from our buyers. Limited competition. When the suppliers are few, it means the suppliers cannot compete amidst themselves. They cannot compete. And if suppliers don't compete, that means the quality of the supply we get will be low. Competition makes them to improve so that they need the buyer to continue buying from them. So if there are many, it is of advantage. Lastly, missed opportunities with better suppliers. Few suppliers can limit us from having good opportunities that would have come with many suppliers, because the many or the better suppliers would have been eliminated from the circle or from the group of suppliers we have together. So in conclusion, allied sourcing strategy with organizational goals, that is of course supplier base. Conduct regular supplier appraisal. We need to also conduct regular appraisal, it's very important. Balance cost and quality and risks. We need to balance the cost, quality, and the risk. Then continuous optimizing the supplier base. We need to continuously optimizing, review or checking who is good. Then lastly, embrace ethical and sustainable technological sourcing practice. These are some of the recommendations that we recommend companies to be practicing to ensure better supplier or better supply interaction and better supply from us, the suppliers in the company. So dear students, for now I will stop there, and in our next lecture we shall look at the procurement negotiation, and basically that will be the third last topic under principles of procurement. So see you then, and thank you so much.